And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China.
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China. All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese. China. Russian. Russia. Italian. Italy. German. Germany. Swedish. Sweden. Korean. Korea. Egyptian. Egypt. Nigerian. Nigeria. Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing. Yes.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
The lion won't sleep tonight. The lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. They want us to sell our souls to barter profit. Like God's property, it's hard to market. So we steady to aim, keep your eyes on target. Cause when you got to drive, yeah, they'd rather you park it. But I don't valet, you ain't getting these keys. I'm keeping closed hands, I'm on bended knee. I'm just a reflection, dealing with 8 sections. Art mixed with life, you can feel the convection. Your lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said
the same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient is there. That's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me time, all that he said.
I know. We don't have
so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of
Yes.
notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews? Do you want to?
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
Assalamu alaikum. In the 13th tribe, Arthur Koestler traces the origin of Eastern Europe's Jewish population that was largely decimated by the Nazi onslaught during the Second World War. Through extensive research, he discusses the history of a trading empire that was set up by a tribe known as the Khazars. The Khazar Empire was located between the expanding power blocks of Christianity and Islam, and the people were converted to Judaism by their king as a way of standing apart from both. The Khazarians and their wealth were dispersed through the countries of Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Khazar Empire. The Khazarians were not a Semitic people, that they called themselves Jews after their conversion to Judaism is as absurd as the Chinese Muslims calling themselves Arabs.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
The entire Bible is about black people. Not only was Jesus black, but every character in the Bible seems to be black too. Yeah, Zephaniah and Jeremiah and Jebediah, those all aren't white people names, okay? And Jesus wasn't some tan, partially melanated Middle Eastern person either. I'm talking straight up black dude, okay? Even in the book of Revelation, when you get the vision of Daniel, he's describing someone with feet like burnt brass and white woolly hair, and we've got the deep running water voice with the red eyes, and you guys, he's black. The Jewish people are black people, like Kanye was right.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
Why do you think that the U.S. is so quick to go help Israel fight against the Palestinians? Why? They know that the Jewish people in Israel are not the original people. Oh, no, no, no. They are definitely not. The original people are black people and people of color. So why did one lady, Judith Shore, she was an Israeli consul, say that the biggest threat in Israel is the younger black community? What?
The major problem of Israel is with the young generation of the black community. Black Lives Matter starts there. I had last week sit-down dinner in my house with some of the people which are considered the leadership of the black community.
Like, what? Did you just tell on yourselves that, you know, how y'all took slaves out of there back in the day and brought them, you know, and made them make America and all this? Because you took them from their original spot. And now they are trying to sit there and continue to take all the little bit of land that Palestine has. The U.S. is evil. The U.S. is evil, not the people in it, because I am from the U.S. But what I'm saying, all the ish is crazy. We have U.S. soldiers over there going to sit there and kill innocent kids, women, children, elderly men, everything in Palestine. But how did black people, all of a sudden, young black people, and the community of black people, all of a sudden become the problem to Israel? Please explain this to me. Is it...
Today, it is prohibited, and you can Google this, to do a DNA test in Israel. Totally forbidden. Wrong. It's illegal. It's a crime. You'll be jailed if you do a DNA test in Israel. Why? Because they know the truth will come out. You come from Poland, you come from Ukraine, you came from Europe, you came from everywhere else. And they were the original Middle Eastern Jews who lived together with the Muslims and the Christians for centuries. For centuries. So what happened to a lot of the Jews?
I was told welcome home because I'm Jewish. Every single person who's Jewish that steps off the plane, especially for their first time in Israel, is told welcome home. Let's just sit with that for a second. This right here, this is my actual ancestry. I am 88% Ashkenazi Jewish, and none of my ancestors are from the Middle East.
You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So, a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history.
Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger!
You might run into one of these groups of the Khazarians that would kill you after learning everything they could about you. They would steal your story, then they would go to China, pretend to be you, make the deal, and then go back, and the deal never happened. You might run into one of these groups of the Khazarians that would kill you after learning everything they could about you. They would steal your story. Then they would go to China, pretend to be you, make the deal, and then go back, and the deal never happened. But the fact is that the clan here was not descended from Shem through Judah, right? I mean, it's not descended from that line biblically. But the fact is that the clan here was not descended from Shem through Judah, right? I mean, it's not descended from that line biblically.
As far as the alleged conversion of the Khazars, you can read it, Yehuda Halevi's book, The Khazari, that it may be true that as there is debate and discussion, there are Turkic people a little over 1,000 years ago, that some of the leaders or some of the people did, in fact, convert to Judaism and then became part of the larger Jewish people. Khazars as a whole disappear from history. That's it. End of subject. There is no Khazarian mafia. There's not a single Jew on the planet that can be traced back in any definitive way to the Khazars. Zero.
Are you familiar with the Khazar theory? There's a theory, it's widely accepted as anti-Semitic, that Ashkenazi Jews come from the Khazars and they're not Levantine. But DNA tests.
It's not anti-Semitic. It's a question of fact. So Shlomo Sand, for example, has argued that, I think probably exaggerated, but it's simply a question of fact. If my ancestors from the Ukraine have Khazar roots, changes nothing. I'm Jewish. My grandfather was Jewish. My family happens to have a story saying that we're descended from the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, that's part of the culture. Doesn't matter what the DNA shows.
It does not matter what color Jesus was. What matters is that he came to the earth, lived a perfect life, died a death for the sins of the world, and then conquered the grave, proving that he is the Son of God. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
It just doesn't matter. 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 It just doesn't.
Who are they then? For Herodotus, so a famous historian in time before Jesus, these people came to be called the Scythians or Scythians, right? We could read through the rest of that in detail, but this has nothing to do with Israel. This has nothing to do with the Jewish people. This has nothing to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. It was an ancient people called the Scythians or Scythians, and they leave society. They disappear. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago. This has nothing to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. It was an ancient people called the Scythians or Scythians, and they leave society. They disappear. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
The white man is enacting a story all over the world. We left our homes and flooded the world. We smothered culture. We smothered knowledge. We erased history and rewrote it our way. Myself, my grandfather is 100% Ashkenazi Jewish. Claiming to be Jewish, Ashkenazi Jewish is just a conspiracy. White men claiming to be of tribes of Israel when I'm Germanic. You know, I have no ties to Israel, no ties to Judaism. You know, except loosely written history that's been whitewashed over for centuries. And you know, from the Renaissance. Oh yeah, right. You wipe everything clean. It's funny how exactly the Renaissance. It's this rebirth, but it's white rebirth. I think at the same exact time the Renaissance is happening, Columbus is sailing to America and committing genocide.
Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you.
Want to say peace and blessings to everyone. Hope all is well with you guys. My apologies for the delay at going live. Tried to get some extra clips together, as you guys see. So I had to put a lot of clips together to try to really uh, tie it into how we're going to flow tonight with the information. So I'm going to drop the link inside the comment section just in case my cousin is up. He may join us, he may not join us, but if he does, that I know we'll have a great conversation. I'm sure that he has a number of, sources that he can share with us tonight. So guess what, family? We got a lot to cover, and we are going to get it in. So I'm going to show you a couple of clips, right, that kind of triggered uh, Dr. Brown for being upset. So before I get into those clips, but let me just share with you Dr. Brown being upset here. Let me let you hear what he had to say about some evangelical pastors. They stated a few things. They said a few things. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. Actually, you guys probably heard the video that I uploaded. Matter of fact, I'll play what they said, and then I'll follow that up with Dr. Brown's response to them, and then we'll get into our response. We'll kind of walk through and show you guys how to fact check when we're hearing stuff like this, because I want to focus on a key area here. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let's go ahead and I want to play a couple of clips here from a couple of evangelicals, and I'm sure we're not going to hear a peep from the Christian church, because they have so much venom for our community, right? If we said anything that may even have a glimpse in their minds to be a contradiction, right? They will do videos, they do all kinds of stuff. But when you have people from the name stealers community saying a number of different things, contradictory statements, silence. Don't say anything. None of them say anything. Right. So that tells you where we are, and really gives you a glimpse of the deception, the delusion, and the opposition that we face. All right. So let me play a couple of clips here, and then we'll unpack it.
And so when he's saying he's coming to redeem, while he would say, redeem Israel, oh God, out of all their troubles. First thing they need to be redeemed at, more dangerous than Hamas, more dangerous than Muslim neighbors, are internal, these, and there's another biblical name, these who say they are Jews and are not.
I was going to ask you about that. In Revelation 3:8, I think, I was going to ask you that question. Does that refer to this time, or can it refer to this time?
It can. It's Revelation 3:9. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Yeah. And there's a different application for it. But we understand this is really, there's a practical storyline I've shared before on a program, maybe a year ago, I don't know, about the Khazarian mafia and the Khazarian Jews. And I'll just say the briefest understanding of it and how this applies to them, because it's about 1,000 years ago. Really, these are almost like marauding tribes, not like tribes of the tribe of Israel, but they're based out of the Ukraine, ironically or not, based out of Kiev. And these were those that would go around, take new lands, and they had brought the Babylonian religion with them. They were doing cannibalism, human trafficking, no boundaries, sex interaction. They were so wicked that the story goes that he who led, I believe it was a Tsar of Russia, when he had won a battle against him, gave him an option. And in some way or another, this is a truth that they were told, again, 1,000 years ago, you must choose a religion. You all are worthless people. You're not training your kids into any kind of civility, reasonableness. And he gave them a choice of the three Abrahamic religions. and the three Abrahamic religions being either, at the time we'd say Catholicism, Christianity, the other one is Islam, and the other was Judaism. And so they, in a very pragmatic way, the Khazarians chose Judaism because the Pope was and the Vatican, they were very hands-on, forcible conversions, and so it was not a light thing to go under that, nor was it Islam. It's a heavy yoke on both, and so Judaism would leave them alone, and so they did some things of incorporating some level of they weren't, first of all, they were not Semites.
That is one of the most ridiculous, error-filled, ugly, despicable rants I've heard. I don't know how else to describe it. I've got whole books on the history of the Khazars, a Turkic people that cannibalism, human trafficking, sexual immorality, there's nothing in historical accounts associating them with that. That's number one. Number two, they were not forced by a czar to choose a world religion. Complete myth. You might as well tell me that Abraham Lincoln was counseled by Elvis Presley about freeing the slaves. That has more historical truth to it than this drivel that we just heard on a major charismatic platform, as Steve Schultz and Johnny Enlow speak. And it's one of the standard anti-Semitic lies that today's Jews are not really Jews, or Jewish leaders in Israel with Ashkenazi background are not really Jews. It's just one of the standard anti-Semitic lies.
Anti-Semitism is a hate against their religion. By the time you get to the 18th and 20th centuries, when so many Jews have assimilated, they are in culture, they are in arts, they're in science, it's no longer against them for their religion, it's against them for their race. Because anti-Semitism is the oldest hate in the world, and the hate that mutates.
You said it's a hate that mutates.
Correct.
So your belief then is that the definition of anti-Semitism can necessarily change. Is that correct?
It's not just my belief. It is the commonly accepted understanding in both the Jewish and academic worlds.
So, family, how do we get pulled into the discussion in terms of why did he have to, Dr. Brown, feel the need to insult us with his analogy about Elvis Presley, recommending or having an input with Abraham Lincoln on freeing our ancestors? What did that have to do with anything? See, we should be upset at just starting with that analogy. What does that have to do with anything? It had nothing to do with anything. See, that was to try to get our community stirred up. That's what that was all about. That had nothing to do with the conversation. That was a terrible analogy. What did that have to do with anything? Do you guys agree with what, my take on that? Do you guys feel like that had nothing to do with? And he said that's more believable that Elvis Presley, who done jacked a number of songs from, artists from within our community. But here it is, he's saying Elvis Presley working with Abraham Lincoln to free our ancestors, who, by the way, that all the communities, including Judaism, and I'm going to have to play or put a couple of slides here to confirm it, had a hand in enslaving our people, starting with who owned the slave ships, right? Who owned most of the slave ships? Who owned most of the ports? And you guys notice, right? The anti-Semitic term was inserted here. Now, what we're going to do, I'm not going to go into the history of the Khazars, right? But I'm going to confirm a few things. We are going to deal with some contradictions here, right? We are going to deal with some contradictions because Dr. Brown, in the clips that I shared, there's some major contradictions because according to him, the Scythians, or the Scythians, rather, disappeared. He also said the Khazarians disappeared. Did you guys catch that? Two major groups of people, the Scythians that connects to the Ashkenazis, disappeared. And then he said that his people, right, migrated, which you have to understand, family, migration is really an invasion. But nevertheless, he said migration to Germany and took on a name and identity of another people. He also said the Khazarians, that no one, not a single Jew, in his own words, are connected, can prove that they are connected to the Khazarians. And then he turns around and say that the Khazarian leaders, the Khazarian people, converted to Judaism. Did you guys catch that? Did you guys catch that? See, we have to pay attention to the details, the in between the lines. When you listen to what he said, when you unpack what he said it was a lot. It was really all over the place, family. We just got to call it what it is. It was all over the place. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to unpack this here. We're going to unpack what he just stated. Right? And again, these guys right here, right? They are two pastors, very popular pastors, large ministries within the evangelical community. I played their clips, and Dr. Brown referred to them as being anti-Semitic. So I'm not going to go into, again, all the details. I'll let them do the name calling. That's between them. But I do want to address a couple of things here, because if you guys caught it, there's something that, matter of fact, I'm just going to get to it. Let me just get to it. Let me get to it. Let's start with Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. You guys know this passage, Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. We're going to deal with those two verses, and I'm going to show you from a Christian Catholic perspective, because if you paid attention to what these guys said, these evangelicals, if you notice when he started giving the history of the Khazarians, and he named the three so-called Abrahamic religions, because Abraham didn't create these religions. Christ didn't create these religions. The followers of the Messiah, which were Hebrews, they didn't create any of these religions. If you notice what he said Catholicism, because why? Christianity did not exist in the 9th century. That's why he hesitated. Before we get into it, I want to give a special shout out to my buddy right here, Apostle Curtis. Family, let's show some love to Apostle Curtis, who is in the building. And Apostle Curtis, I'm going to drop the link if you, again, inside the chat, if you want to jump in and share any thoughts, that's up to you. But I really appreciate all what you do, family. He is putting in the work. So let's show some love and support to the elder that is in the building, Apostle Curtis, who's holding things down in Louisiana. Also, he has a ministry, a location out in Houston. So family, let's show some love and support for Apostle Curtis. Thank you, my brother. Really appreciate you. Thank the Most High for the friendship. All right. So family, let's I'm going to, like I said, if you call what they said, because Christianity, especially this Christianity that you see today, which is really a 14th century creation, because they all fall up under Catholicism. That's why he hesitated when he was explaining the so-called three Abrahamic religions. He said Christian, but then he corrected himself, said Catholic Christians, right? He also said Judaism, and he mentioned Islam. Islam is like a 6th century creation, right? But again, none of the Israelites created any of these things. All right. So I want to make sure you guys understand that. Okay. So let me give you Revelation chapter 2, verse 9 from a Christian perspective, from a Catholic perspective, how they would teach this. And then we will transition over to a different argument that we heard from these guys and others. So let's go to Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. You guys know this, but it says, I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Yahwadah, in other words, Judah, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And family, I purposely put Judah there because, again, that word Jew is a word of confusion. That word Jew is not an ancient word. That word Jew started out as GYU and eventually got in the English language. And this is where we get now the JEW rather. So that's a word of confusion. Yahwadah is the ancient. Some of you guys may say Yahuda or Yehudi, right? But not as we see today. So that's why you see Yahwadah, the ancient pronunciation of it, and Judah. All right. I'd rather say Judah versus saying Jew because of that word being a very confusing word and completely taken out of context, right? Because it pushes a completely different narrative. All of Israel was not called Judah. All right. But anyway, so let me read it again. I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, and I know what it says, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Yahwadah, in other words, Judah, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Right. So what is this? What is this passage saying? What does this passage mean? Right. What is the meaning of the passage according to how the church, Catholicism, Christianity, how they teach it? So let's break it down according to them, and then we'll give the other thought to this, right? Okay, right. So anyway, so Christianity, Catholicism teach that these passages involves the church, right? And that word church began its usage, right, in the way that it's being used in the 4th century. In the 4th century. So I want to make sure you guys understand that. That's a Celtic word that was referred to as their place of worship, because their place of worship was a circle. And depending on the time, I'll drop a source here just so that way I show sources. Because here we show sources. I don't like to just give, say certain things. I like to share sources. So it's 2 things I have to make sure I share: the origins of that word church, and also showing the Jewish community, Judaism, being involved in the transatlantic world war, not a slave trade. It was a world war. So anyway, so let's break down how they teach, far as the early so-called church fathers teach about these set of passages. So the Catholic Christian Church teach that the so-called church, endured all kinds of slander, right? So they're saying that the church, endured all kinds of slander from who? they teach that the slander came especially from the Israelites of the city of Smyrna. All right. This is what they teach. They teach that, again, they were under slander. They were under mockery from the ancient Israelites. That's what they teach. All right. So there was a large community of Israelites in Smyrna. According to the historians, in other words, the so-called church fathers, they were very prosperous and made large gifts to the arts and to the culture development of the city. As a result, they were supposedly influential in the city officials and local government, Roman government. According to they, in other words, the so-called Christian fathers, church fathers, it was the Israelites who were stirring up so much trouble against the church, right? So this is a duplicate here. So is this the proper understanding of the passage? Because this is what they would teach. This is what they teach. Let me get this duplicate slide out real quick, just in case I have to, I may have to teach this again. So I might as well get the duplicate slide out right now. All right, got it out of there. All right, so that's what they teach. So let's flip it over to the next verse, Revelation chapter 3, verse 19. Let's see what it says. All right. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Yahweh, in other words, Judah, and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. So again, what's the proper clarity, or what's the clarity of how they teach? I'm not going to say proper clarity. How is this passage taught from the Catholic Christian Church? Well, they teach that the synagogue of Satan, according to the Catholic Christian Church, refers to the Israelites who say that they follow Yahweh, but they do not. They reject Christ. Rejecting Christ is to reject the revelation of Yahweh, to reject Yahweh himself. All right. So that's how they teach those passages. Right. But the question here, and I didn't put the question here, that we don't hear any of, we'll see. I'll just say sit back and see. Right. But this is what the church teach. But let's see if they're going to have the same smoke, because many, and of course they basically put it all on the Israelite community, our Hebrew Israelite community. And when I say that, not a religion, because this is our heritage. We are the people of the book. But they'll put it on our community, stating that we're taking it and we're adding the identity to this. And when you do the research on all who use this as being a form of identity theft, you'll see it's not just our community. As you see here, I just highlighted two evangelicals who literally, matter of fact, I'll play it again. I'm not going to play all the clips, but I'll play it again, what they said about what we just laid out. Right? Let's see what they said. Let's play it again. And let's see if many of those that have purpose in their heart, purpose in their spirit, they want to do everything to undermine this awakening. They want to do everything that they can do to bring an evil report to the awakening, everything that they can to bring an evil report to our community. Let's see what they have to say about how they elaborated on the text, how they interpret the scripture. Listen to what they said again. I'm going to play that one clip again. Here it is.
And so when he's saying he's coming to redeem, while he would say, redeem Israel, O God, out of all their troubles. First thing they need to be redeemed at, more dangerous than Hamas, more dangerous than Muslim neighbors, are internal, these And there's another biblical name, these who say they are Jews and are not.
I was going to ask you about that. In Revelation 3:8, I think I was going to ask you that question. Does that refer to this time, or can it refer to this time?
It can. It's Revelation 3:9. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie.
Yeah.
And there's a different application for it.
So you guys heard, they said there's a different application for these two passages. A different application. I just read to you, I just explained to you the common application among the Christian church. But you just heard with your own ears, they made it clear that there's a different application to this text. So let's see if the Christian church have conferences about these two evangelicals. Let's see if the Christian church is going to have, all kinds of videos done on these two evangelicals. Let's see if they get the same treatment that our community deals with from these different spaces of people that call themselves following Yahweh. Let me give a quick shout out here. I see a couple of contributions here. Let me give a shout out to Arthur Candace Phillips Anderson. Thank you for the love and support. Let's praise the Most High, Yah, for the teaching of Yah's word. May the Most High bless you abundantly, Pastor Kelly. Thank you for the love and support. Really appreciate the contributions tonight. And also, Milo, thank you for the super sticker. And again, let's give shout outs to Apostle Curtis. Thank you for the love and support. Thank you, Pastor Kelly, for what you do. Family, let's show our love and support for everyone that contributed to the work tonight. Thank you again. Love you guys. Really love you guys. Really appreciate you guys. All right. So, family. So this is where, I love how the Most High do things. He has a great sense of humor, because the same way that they're trying to judge our community, guess what? They're going to be judged the same way. The same way. All right, family. So you heard it with your own ears, right? And you also heard Dr. Brown's response to it. You heard Dr. Brown's response to it. All right. So this was his response to what they said.
I was like, a hawk. You know, girl,
Right.
oh no.
Exactly.
Right?
And the bird did what?
Ooh, I said, bird, get back. Fly up, fly away.
Yeah.
Be gone, bye. Up in the sky, nice try, bye.
I just thought I had to put a little humor there. But that's what comes to mind when I hear Dr. Brown's comments. That's what comes to my mind. That little clip there by Rockstar. Shout outs to Rockstar for what he's doing with these clips, man. He's doing some great work. All right. So, but this is what Dr. Brown actually said. Let's play it one more time.
That is one of the most ridiculous, error-filled, ugly, despicable rants I've heard. I don't know how else to describe it. I've got whole books on the history of the Khazars, a Turkic people that cannibalism, human trafficking, sexual immorality, there's nothing in historical accounts associating them with that. That's number one. Number two, they were not forced by a czar to choose a world religion. Complete myth. You might as well tell me that Abraham Lincoln was counseled by Elvis Presley about freeing the slaves. That has more historical truth to it than this drivel that we just heard on a major charismatic platform, as Steve Schultz and Johnny Enlow speak. And it's one of the standard anti-Semitic lies that today's Jews are not really Jews, or Jewish leaders in Israel with Ashkenazi background are not really Jews. It's just one of the standard.
He said that Elvis being, advocate, so to speak, a counsel with Abraham Lincoln, an advisor or whatever, to free our ancestors has more validity more validity to everything what those pastors, those evangelical pastors had stated. All right. You guys heard it with your own ears. Okay. And so let's unpack this here, family. This stuff you guys already know. I go over this stuff over and over again. I've taught this a number of times, right? And I'm going to keep teaching it, right? Because I know that, I see comments from a handful of people asking me, why do I have to teach certain things over? Guess what, family? Number one, understand the psychology of teaching in terms of repetition. Understand that. Understand how the lies have been repeated over and over again, recycled over and over again. So guess what? I'm going to continue to repeat myself. I'm not going to let stuff die along the way. No, I want to continue to say the same thing over and over and over again as long as the lies exist. Just because it may be new to some of you guys or old to some of you guys, it's new to others. All right. So let's go ahead and unpack some of this here. Let's unpack some of this here. Chia, right? Let's unpack some of this because Dr. Brown said a lot. He said a lot, right? And let's play his Khazarian and his Scythian, the things that he stated about the Khazarians disappearing, the Scythians disappearing, and we're going to use the sources. We're going to let the sources speak, but I'm going to give you some key information to bridge all of this together. All right, let's start with the contradiction. Here it is.
As far as the alleged conversion of the Khazars, you can read it, Yehuda Halevi's book, The Khazari, that it may be true that as there is debate and discussion, there are Turkic people a little over 1,000 years ago that some of the leaders or some of the people did, in fact, convert to Judaism and then became part of the larger Jewish people. Khazars as a whole disappeared from history. That's it. End of subject. There is no Khazarian mafia. There is not a single Jew on the planet that can be traced back in any definitive way to the Khazars. Zero.
All right. So he said the Khazars disappeared from the planet, but yet at the same time, they converted over to Judaism. That's what he said about the Khazarians. And this is what he said again about the Scythians. Scythians. Let's play it again.
Who are they then? For Herodotus, so a famous historian in time before Jesus, these people came to be called the Scythians or Scythians, right? We could read through the rest of that in detail, but this has nothing to do with Israel. This has nothing to do with the Jewish people. This has nothing to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. It was an ancient people called the Scythians or Scythians, and they leave society. They disappear. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago. This has nothing to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. It was an ancient people called the Scythians or Scythians, and they leave society. They disappear. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago.
So he says the Scythians or Scythians were gone a couple of thousand years ago, but then he turned around and say this about them 1,000 years ago. Here we go, real quick.
You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth.
Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. It's a duck blur.
That's the dance that we heard. There was a lot of dancing in what Dr. Brown said. He was doing a lot of dancing. That's what he was actually doing. He was doing a lot of dancing. Did you guys catch the dancing? Did he not do a lot of dancing? Did you guys catch the dancing? That's what he was doing. Shout outs to my brother Greg. Looking forward to seeing you at the Passover. That's right. Remember, it's the 22nd. Come on down. Shoot me a text or email. That way we can make sure you set, you and the family, hotels and everything. So thank you for the love and support. Shalom. I trust the Most High continue to bless you. To bless and keep you and the family. Looking forward to the Passover fellowship at PFR Ministries. Hallelujah. Family, let's show my brother Greg, show him some love and support. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right. So that's the dance. So let's go ahead and unpack this, family, because we got a lot to unpack. Let's unpack this. And I want to take you guys to Revelation. And matter of fact, before I do this, actually, you know what? This is what we'll do. We'll go through Revelation. And then it's a key thing that I want to highlight is the attribute, a key attribute that is that the scripture tells us about, a certain group of people. And we'll get there. When we get there, I'll pull the information in. We'll do it that way. All right. So let's start with Revelation chapter 13, starting at verse 1. Actually, we'll read verse 1 and verse 2. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns, upon his horns, 10 crowns, upon his heads, the name blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So the scripture tells us that a beast is going to rise up out of the sea. And so when you really unpack this text, and I've been teaching this for years on top of years, I think this lesson is at least over 10 years old, right? When I was teaching it internally before I started teaching it on social media. So the Vikings, right? When I read and studied this text, this made me go right into the history of the Vikings, right? So this is little information on the Vikings. Nearly 500 years before the birth of Christopher Columbus, a band of European sailors left their homeland behind in search of a new world. Their high-powered Viking ships sliced through the cobalt waters of the Atlantic Ocean as winds billowed the boats' enormous single sail after traversing unfamiliar waters. The Norsemen aboard the wooden ship spied a new land, dropped anchor, and went ashore, half a millennium before Columbus discovered America. Those Vikings' feet may have been the first European ones to ever have touched Northern American soil. All right. So the dragon gave power to these beasts. There are 4 beasts. They tie into the 4 beasts of Revelation chapter 7. So let's deal with the Greek definition of this word beast, right? As we see here, Therion, it says here, a dangerous animal. In other words, a venomous wild beast, right? So I want you guys to keep that in mind. This beast is going to be known for what? Savagery. This beast is ferocious, okay? So keep that in mind, right? And so when we look at dragon, right, it says here, drakon, right? It says this, kind of serpent, a great serpent, a name for Hashatan. So this serpent is going to be what? As we see, is ferocious. We already experienced the savagery, and I'm going to show you here the savagery, because that's one of the things that these evangelical pastors pointed out is about the savagery of the Khazars. So they mentioned rape. They mentioned cannibalism. They mentioned a number of different things. So what we have to do here, what I am tasked to do here, is to see if they were savages. Was they correct about the savagery? Some of the savageries of the Khazarians, right? So we have a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack, and guess what? I am up for the task. All right. So who is this poisonous serpent? Who is this poisonous dragon? Right. And so now this is coming from another source, Norse mythology.org, right? Dealing with Jormungand or Jormungand, right? Who is a Old Norse, right? Called the great beast or the Midgard serpent, right? Midgard. This is dealing with the Norse religion. This is dealing with Odin, Loki, Thor, right? The big serpent, right? So the Midgard serpent is a snake or a dragon. And you see this image on what? The Viking ships, for starters, who lives in the ocean that surrounds Midgard. So this beast, right, coming out of the water, coming out of the ocean, and giving power to the four beasts, right? That's the scripture. This dragon, this snake giving power to the four beasts. This beast is known for its savagery, for poison, for venom, rather. All right. So this snake is so enormous, according to the mythology or the Norse religion, is that his body forms a circle around the entirety of Midgard. So when we go to Revelation chapter 9, right, it says here, and they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek, Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon, right? This is dealing with Apollo, dealing with the Pythian, the python snake, Pthum. I'm not going to get into all of that because it'll add a lot more to the conversation tonight. So I'm just keeping it simple. So this poisonous serpent, dragon, reputation is invasions, right? The Vikings were known for invasions, not migrations, invasions. Okay, so let's deal with the etymological dictionary definition of invasion. It says here, an assault, attack, act of entering a country or territory as an enemy. Invasion, attack, assault, and attack, invasion. So you get the gist of it. So invasion, this is what we're dealing with. This beast, right? This serpent has so much venom, and it gave power to the other beast, the four beasts, from language to anyway. I'll stop it right here. But starting with language, the English language, the mouth of a lion. But we see here an assault, attack, act of entering a country or territory as an enemy. It goes on to say to come, right? To go, come, or get into, enter violently, penetrate into as an enemy, assail, assault, make an attack on. To go, to walk, go ghastly, to or fro, right? Trolling, right? As the roaring lion, that's trolling. Okay. It goes on to say, in extended sense of diseases, a harmful incursion of any kind, infringement by intrusion, encroachment by entering into or taking away what belongs to another. So they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit. So we're going to leave that alone there. But I just want to deal with the venom. I want to deal with the ugliness. I want to deal with the savagery, right? Since Dr. Brown told us that we need to pull out sources, right? And he gave some sources in the initial video in his response to Dante. He brought up the Scythians or the Scythians. So the question is, who are the Scythians? Who are the Scythians? Let's see who the Scythians are. Started with understanding Magog. Let's start with locating Magog, right? Magog, it says region of Gog, the second son of Japheth, it is the name of a nation, probably some Scythians or Scythians rather, or Tartar rather, tribe descended from Japheth. So we see the Scythians being connected with Magog, right? A region of Gog, where it says again, probably some Scythians or Tartar tribe descended from Japheth. So it said it is the name of a nation. Okay. Scythians, we see that ties into the Scythians, denotes Scythian nations, fierce. Now, notice we see that word fierce associated with the Scythians, and innumerable who live beyond the Caucasus and the lake Meotis, excuse me, and near the Caspian Sea, and spread out even onward to India. Okay, so we see that the Scythians are connected to Gog, right? We also are going to see how they are like the commonality, the common denominator with other groups. So Magog is the second son of Japheth, and we could confirm this in Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2, but really Genesis chapter 10, verse 1 rather, and verse 2, but really want to hone in on verse 2, excuse me. So the son of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach. Right? So we see it right here in the scriptures, Magog, which is a son of Japheth. So according to Easton's Bible Dictionary, 1894, Magog is also connected to the Scythians. So make a note of that, family. Who are the Scythians? All right, let's break them down. Now, this is coming from the Britannica because Dr. Brown said, go to the Britannica. Let's see what the Britannica say. Scythians, also called Scyth, Sake, member of a nomadic people originally of Iranian stock, known from as early as the 9th century BCE, who migrated westward from Central Asia to southern Russia and Ukraine in the 8th and 7th century BCE. The Scythians or the Scythians founded a rich, powerful empire on what is now Crimea. So we see that the Scythians are connected to the Russians, the Ukrainians. We see Crimea. You also see Poland. You'll see Hungarian. You'll see the connection here. Okay. So who are the Scythians? Let's go to academic, right? Let's go to this source right here, academicoop.com. It says here, and the title of this article is Localizing Jews to Primeval Villages in the Ancient Iranian Lands of Ashkenaz. Now, notice what it says here. An analysis of 393 Ashkenazi Iranian and Mountain Jews and over 600 non-Jewish genomes demonstrated that Greeks, Romans, Iranians, and Turks exhibit the highest genetic similarities with who? Ashkenazi Jews. Uh-oh. The geographic population structure analysis localized most Ashkenazi Jews along major primeval trade routes routes in northeastern Turkey adjacent to primeval villages with names that may be derived from Ashkenaz, because Ashkenaz is synonymous with the word German, right? Family Germany. So Ashkenaz. So Iranian and Mountain Jews were localized along trade routes on the Turkey eastern border. Loss of maternal haplogroups was evident in non-Yiddish speaking Ashkenazi Jews. Our results suggest that Ashkenazi Jews originated from a Slavo-Iranian confederation, which the Jews called Ashkenazic. An example, what? Scythians or Scythians. We see that name Scythians here, family. We see that name Scythians. So we see Ashkenazi Jews are connected to the Scythians. Let me say that again. The Ashkenazi Jews are connected to the Scythians. So make sure you make the connection, because Dr. Brown said that they died off. Remember Dr. Brown's statement. I'm going to play a statement again, and we're going to unpack it. We're going to unpack his statement. Let's see what he says about the Scythians. Let's see what he says here.
Who are they then? For Herodotus, So, a famous historian in time before Jesus, these people came to be called the Scythians or Scythians, right? We could read through the rest of that in detail, but this has nothing to do with Israel. This has nothing to do with the Jewish people. This has nothing to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. It was an ancient people called the Scythians or Scythians, and they leave society, they disappear, they're all gone a couple thousand years ago. This has nothing to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. It was an ancient people called the Scythians or Scythians, and they leave society, they disappear, they're all gone a couple thousand years ago. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago.
Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. It's a duck blur.
All right, so we see that the Scythians, even in his source that he shared, the Scythians or Scythians are connected to the Ashkenazis, right? The Ashkenazic people. And we see this source here making it clear that, as we see here on what's on your screen, the Jews call Ashkenazic, an example, Scythians or Scythians. And it goes on to say, this is compatible with linguistic evidence suggesting that Yiddish is a Slavic language created by Irano-Turco-Slavic Jewish merchants. All right. So who are the Scythians? Who are the Scythians? However you want to pronounce it. Let's go to the Anchor Bible Dictionary, Volume 1, definition of Ashkenaz. Let's do what Ashkenaz. Let's see what it has to say. It says Ashkenaz, first descendant of Gomer, who is the first offspring of Japheth in the tables of nations in Genesis chapter 10, verse 2 and 3. We already read from that. In Jeremiah 51:27, Ashkenaz appears along the Ararat and many as a kingdom called upon to oppose Babylon. The name is identified with the Neo-Assyrian Ishkuza, who appears between the Black and Caspian Sea in the 8th and 7th century BCE, or excuse me, BC, driving out the Cimmerians or Cimmerians. And it says here, it goes on to say, and it gives Genesis chapter 10, but it goes on to say, in threatening the Assyrians. For Herodotus, these people came to be called the Scythians or Scythians. So we see the Ashkenazis, right, are connected to the Scythians or Scythians. So we've proven this here. The correspondence of the consonants of Ashkenaz, Ishkuza, and Scythian is obvious. So now this is getting into the linguistic side of things. We're not going to go into all of that. So let's fast forward. It says, although cultural association reached back into this 3rd and 2nd millennia BC, archaeological evidence for a distinctive Scythian or Scythian culture begins in the 7th century BC. All right. So this is just giving you some different sources. The Assyrians, the Babylonians, basically just letting you know their imprint, right? The Scythians had on different groups. As we see here, possible portrayals of Scythians or Scythians appear on 9th century reliefs in Ashurnasirpal, the second, excuse me if I butchered the name, but the first Neo-Assyrian mention of the Ishkuza occurs during the time of Sargon II in the 8th century BC, driving back the Cimmerians or Cimmerians. The Scythians were able to push south to dominate Asia and Media in the latter part of the 7th century BC. About this time, in a Scythian raid against Egypt was stopped by Psammetichus the first, and this gives the source of Herodotus' writings here. But for the latter history, the Scythians and the question of their identity with the enemy of the north mentioned in the first part of Jeremiah. So we see, looking at Ashkenazis, right? The Ashkenaz tells us to go to the Scythians because we see the Scythians is connected to who? Ashkenaz, or the Ashkenazis. And notice what it says here. It says what? See Scythians. And let me zoom this in so no one think that I'm doctoring or playing with the words here. Notice what it says right here. See Scythians. This is what I just read here. That's the screenshot from this. All right. And this is dealing with Ashkenaz. All right. So Ashkenaz and Scythians or Scythians are the same people. So according to the Anchor Bible Dictionary, the Scythians are the descendants of Ashkenaz. They're connected. Now, the Anchor Bible Dictionary, Volume 5, let's see what they say about the Scythians or Scythians. Notice what it says, and I'm not going to read it all, but it says some biblical scholars sometimes associate the Scythians or Scythians with Ashkenaz and with the bringer of destruction in the prophecies of Jeremiah. And it gives a number of prophecies here, references to Jeremiah and Zephaniah, right? Outside the Hebrew Bible, their reputation for savagery, we see that word savagery associated with the Scythians, right? Associated with the Ashkenazis, right? So savagery is connected to these guys. So it says outside the Hebrew Bible, their reputation for savagery is alluded to in 2nd Maccabees, the 3rd Maccabees, 2nd Maccabees 4:7, 3rd Maccabees 7:5, 4th Maccabees 10:7, Colossians 3 verse 11. So the Scythians called Eshguzi or Eshguzai, right? Which is interesting when you start unpacking who the Eshguzai are, right? So far as some of the additional information about them. That's a whole nother discussion. We'll touch on just a little pinch of it, but I have another presentation that I'm going to save it for. So the Scythians called Ashguzai or Ashguzai or Ashguzai by the Assyrians apparently first appeared in written history in the annals of Asar-Haddon and seemed to be centered at the time in what is today northwest Iran, according to Herodotus. Now you see how they refer to Herodotus. Now this is giving us more information, and it's kind of confirming what we just read about the Ashkenazis. It says Scythians ruled over all of the Near East for 28 years after entering the area from the north, right? Traditionally, this period of rule is assigned to the 7th or 6th century BC. The Scythians or Scythians continue to be mentioned in the text of the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks as allies and as enemies through the 4th century. So this is telling you that they are mentioned by the Babylonians in their text, the Persians in their text, the Greeks in their text. So this is just giving you more information on them, right? So Scythian presence in the Near East is restricted to Crimea and the shores of the Black Sea. All right. So this is, again, giving us more information on this. All right, so let's deal with this here. The Scythians or Scythians, they were known for their savagery. Did you guys see that? You know, it said that they are known for their savagery. And we have to deal with the savagery of the Scythians or the Scythians, right? I'm saying it both ways because, you know, some pronounce it different ways, right? So let's go here. Let's deal with the savagery, right? Because we're dealing with the Scythians, who's connected to the Ashkenaz. And remember, Dr. Brown, you heard with his own mouth, you heard with his own words, stated that they took on the identity of the Ashkenazis. That's what he said, his own words. Let's play it real quick, right? Let's play it real quick.
You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany. They looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history.
So he says, study the history, and we're going to take you on a course of history, historical information. We studied the history. We've been studying the history, right? So we're going to deal with this. We're going to deal with the savagery, because remember, right? He said that it's more believable that Elvis was an aid or assisted Abraham Lincoln in freeing our ancestors than to believe that the Khazarians behaved in savagery. Whether you want to deal with cannibalism, whether you want to deal with raping and all those different things. That's what he said. So let's go ahead and unpack this. Researchers test 2,400-year-old leather and realize it's made of human skin. December 20th, 2023. Let's deal with who these people are. It says researchers, again, test 2,400-year-old leather and realize it's made of human skin. A group of horse riding warriors kept some gruesome battle trophies. This is savagery, right? Barbaric, right? What did they keep? Scythians or Scythians in modern day Ukraine made leather out of human skin. A team of researchers has determined, likely as a macabre trophy item. The discovery affirms a claim by the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, who wrote extensively on the Scythians or Scythians way of life. Right? You see this all through it. I have some of his documents. I didn't get a chance to make a screen print, but that's going to be for another video. In their work, the researchers used excuse me for butchering the words, paleoprotemics or proteomics, however you want to pronounce it, to establish the source of leather found on 14 different Scythians or Scythian sites in southern Ukraine. So this is telling you that the Scythians, who are synonymous to the Ashkenazis, they were using human skin for leather. The manifold source, sheep, goat, cattle, horse, and yes, human skin, suggests that the equestrian step groups had a sophisticated knowledge of leatherworking. The team's research was published last week in PLOS 1. All right, just telling you where it was published at. So we see that they made leather out of human skin. Let me say that again. They made leather out of human skin. That's right. Makes you think about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? Leatherface. Notice they called it Leatherface, right? Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they called him what? Leatherface, even though he used human skin. So this further is right inside your face, further proves that human skin was used for leather. But let's continue. Let's continue. Let's deal with the savagery, right? Nat Turner, right? I'm not going to read all of this, but Nat Turner, skull and my student's purse of skin. So Nat Turner, right? They used his skin. They used his skin for oil. That's right, oil as well, family. That's why when you understand that movie, Leave the World Behind, you saw the white lion coming up on the shore, right? That was an oil tanker, showing the symbolism of who? The colonizers using our ancestors' skin to make oil, to make pocketbooks, to make shoes, that they used it as leather. That's what that meant. That's why you saw that coming to what is called today Fort Monroe, which is down in the Hampton Roads area. But anyway, All right. So this is just giving you more information, even about how his head, a decapitated head, his head was circulating. All right. So why is this historical barbaric fact important to know? Because when I think about the characteristics, the spirit, because when we think about the word sham in the Israeli shame, right, or shem, right, that word means reputation, characteristics. So again, it means reputation, characteristics. It could be a literal name, but also the reputation of the bearer of the name, the characteristics of the bearer of the name. But notice this source here. But let me drop the other source. I said I was going to drop it, so let me drop this in the chat. And family, vet the sources. I'm not just bringing these sources up just to try to sound good. No, I want you guys to vet these sources. And if I misuse or misrepresented the sources, hey, let me know. And I have no problem with apologizing. But I know that we're not misusing these sources. All right, but let me drop this in the comment section. This is about the leather face, the leather skin of human skin. All right. And let me put this in back to the back. All right. All right. Now let me do it. But anyway, I'll correct this a little later. All right. Let me see if I do it right now. Yeah, my mouse is acting up. But anyway, we won't worry about it, family. All right, let's continue. All right. And let me put this article in the chat as well. Right? We're doing exactly what Dr. Brown recommended. Do our history. And we're doing the history on this. All right. So let me put this source inside the chat. All right. All right. All right. So let's continue. Leather from human skin. I remember that 2 or 3 years ago, I incidentally referred to a prominent physician of this city wearing shoes made from the skin of Negroes. He still adhered to that custom, insisting that the tanned hide of an African makes the most enduring and the most pliable leather known to man. Let me read that portion again. He still adhered to that custom, insisting that the tanned hide of an African makes the most enduring and the most pliable leather known to man. Only last week, I met him upon the street with a brand new pair of shoes. I looked at the footwear as I always do. His pedal coverings have an irresistible fascination for me, and said with a smile, "Is the downtrodden African still beneath your feet?" Let me say that again. While he's wearing the shoes, this is what it stated: "Is the downtrodden African still beneath your feet?" In the most matter of fact way, and without the shadow of a smile, he answered, "I suppose it you mean to inquire if I still wear shoes made of the skin of a Negro. I certainly do. And I don't propose changing in that respect until I find a leather that is, in other words, what he's saying is stronger or better." So why is this historical barbaric fact important to know? Let's go back here. Continues on. The young doctor who presented them to her recently returned from an extended foreign tour, and he told her that he had purchased them from a Turk in Alexandria. Wait a minute. So the Scythians, along with the Ashkenazis, they are all a part of what? A Turkish people. Let me say that again. The Scythians, right? The Ashkenazis, they are connected to the Turkish people. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We're going somewhere with this. And that he did not know what sort of leather they were made of, but he supposed it was the skin of some wild animal. This is another situation here of someone else wearing leather from Negroes, right? So this is multiple accounts in this article here. But anyway, as a matter of fact, the skin carney or came, that's what I think it says came. I think that's when I copied it over into text, it put carney, but it should be came. The skin came from a Negro cadaver, which was once prone on a Jefferson College dissecting table, and the leather was prepared in Wamseldorf. The Rosettis, or the Rosettas, however you want to pronounce it, on the slipper wore deftly fashioned from the Negro's kinky hair. So this is not only saying the leather was used, but also the hair was also used on these shoes as well. Not surprised, because they used our hair for pillows, to make pillows of. All right. So also what's interesting, as they pointed out, right, Herodotus describes the Scythians or Scythians as man-eaters. Describe them as man-eaters. Let's see what he says. All right. I'm just going to use a source here. I'm not going to go into the Herodotus thing because I'm saving that for another video. But this is a source here, right? And it's titled "Geneticists and Archaeologists Are Tracing the Belligerent Scythians." It says here, 2,500 years ago, the Scythians were the northernmost people that the Greeks knew about and were written about by the contemporaries of the ancient Greeks, primarily the historian Herodotus. Herodotus also depicted the Scythians as cannibals. Wait a minute. So we see the Scythians using human skin as leather. They also being recognized as what? Cannibalism. Though it is still unknown whether cannibalism really took place or not, the majority of our knowledge about these people have been gathered. So we see cannibalism, right? They made reference to Herodotus. So the Scythians, right, remember, occupied what's called modern day Russia and Ukraine. Let me say that again. The Scythians, or Ashkenazis, they occupy what's called modern day Russia and Ukraine. So there's another group of Russians who are connected to the Russians and Ukraine. Guess who they are? They are called the Khazars. Let me say that again. They are called the Khazars. Come on, family. Come on, family. They are called the Khazars. Okay. So the Jewish community, as we know them, falls under two major groups, right? Two main groups, the Sephardic Jews and the Ashkenazi Jews, according to these groups that they created. All right. And here's just a little side note. Let me play a quick clip here, right? Let's play a quick clip about the Sephardic Jews. Let's play a quick clip.
I'm so glad you're here because you can bring great clarity. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sephardic Jews and how they were scattered because they went west?
I sure can.
Because the reason why I want to is because a lot of them, and a lot of people don't know this, are in the Caribbean.
They are.
In the islands.
And you're one of them. I know that.
I'm one of them.
I know that.
Because, a lot of folk don't know that those roots are there. One of the first batches of slaves that came to Jamaica, they were the Sephardic Jews. It's documented.
And they're all over the Caribbean, South America, Central America, and even the South Central United States.
Wow.
And DNA testing is a factor in all this now.
All right. So you heard a little interesting history about the Sephardics. All right. And you see that there was they made mention that it was all through Jamaica, the Caribbeans, the southern parts of the United States, as far as Negroes, all right? Thus, we can deal with the Spanish Inquisition, but we're not going to do that tonight, all right? So let's continue to move this train along. Okay, let's continue to keep this train moving along. So the Ashkenazi, right, are the East European Jews which were found in Poland, Russia, Germany, and Western Asia. Okay, this group of Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, make up 90% of what of the so-called Jews in the world. This is according to their documents. The Jewish Encyclopedia, 1905, revealed that the main stock of the Jews came from this people known as Khazars or Khazars. So let's go to their source, because if we, like he said, research it. So this is the Jewish Encyclopedia, volume 4, page 1. This is on the very first page, right? It says the Khazars, right? Or Khazars, a people of Turkish origin. Wait a minute. We saw the Scythians connected to the Turks. We saw the Ashkenazis connected to the Turks. So we see the Khazarians connected to the Turks. So this is telling us that they are what? The same people. See, even in the DNA testing, they don't use the word Khazars, but they still mark the same territories, right? They may call it Russia. They may call it Crimea, but it's still the same territory. So we see here the Khazars, a people of Turkish origin whose life and history are interwoven with the very beginning of history of the Jews of Russia. Wait a minute. So let me read it one more time, right? Because according to Dr. Brown, let's play his clip again. I'll just play his clip. Let's listen to his words, because he said that you can't connect the dots, right? But let's see what he actually says. Let's do this again.
As far as the alleged conversion of the Khazars, you can read it in Yehuda Halevi's book, The Khazari, that it may be true that as there is debate and discussion, there are Turkic people a little over 1,000 years ago that some of the leaders or some of the people did, in fact, convert to Judaism and then became part of the larger Jewish people. Khazars as a whole disappear from history. That's it. End of subject. There is no Khazarian mafia. There is not a single Jew on the planet that can be traced back in any definitive way to the Khazars. Zero.
Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. It's a duck blur.
Are you familiar with the Khazar theory? There's a theory, it's widely accepted as anti-Semitic, that Ashkenazi Jews come from the Khazars and they're not Levantine. But DNA tests.
It's not anti-Semitic. It's a question of fact. So Shlomo Sand, for example, has argued that, I think probably exaggerated, but it's simply a question of fact. If my ancestors from the Ukraine have Khazar roots, changes nothing. I'm Jewish. My grandfather was Jewish. My family happens to have a story saying that we're descended from the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, that's part of the culture. Doesn't matter what the DNA shows.
When you see Ashkenazi Jews sharing high similarity to Romanians and Hungarians, this is because both of these populations were offshoots of the Khazars. They were both founded by these members of the Caucasus who ruled this area of north of the Black Sea, where we have South Russia nowadays, between the 7th and 13th centuries. Very powerful empire. They converted to Judaism in the 8th century, and they sent offshoots to Eastern Europe. And we still some Ashkenazi Jews are mapped to this region of Ukraine. They're not all mapped to Ashkenaz. Most of them are, but some of them are mapped to Ukraine, and we can see very nicely some kind of migration route using GPS.
So we see the DNA connects. That is Aaron Professor Aaron Elhake, who is a Ashkenazi Jewish geneticist, proved that the Khazarian hypothesis is not just an hypothesis, it's facts, credible evidence dealing with DNA. And this is why you see more and more popping up with these type of comments and testimonies on social media.
I was told welcome home because I'm Jewish. Every single person who's Jewish that steps off the plane, especially for their first time in Israel, is told welcome home. Let's just sit with that for a second. This right here, this is my actual ancestry. I am 88% Ashkenazi Jewish, and none of my ancestors are from the Middle East.
All right. So you see, right? Those are the testimonies. I got plenty of those testimonies, you know? So again, the Khazars, a people of Turkish origin whose life and history are interwoven with the very beginnings of the history of the Jews of Russia. The kingdom of the Khazars were firmly established in most of South Russia long before the foundation of the Russian monarchy by the Varangians. Excuse me if I butcher it up. Yeah. All right. Excuse me if I butcher the names. But anyway, so it goes on to say, Jews have lived on the shores of the Black and Caspian Seas since the first century of the Common Era. Historical evidence points to the region of the Ural as the home of the Khazars. Among the classical writers of the Middle Ages, they were known as Khazars or Khazirs or Akhazirs and Akatirs, and in the Russian chronicles, right? So it gives you additional information on the Khazars, right? And then when we deal with this source here, tracing lost history from the Caucasus to Europe, right? Dr. Koja Spory, right? His origins, right? He's dealing with invasions here, still tying into the prophecies that we highlighted. According to some scientists, large part of the so-called European or Caucasian civilizations include the Indo-European languages, originally from the area between the Caucasus and the Volga. Ashkenazi Jewry, deriving from the ancient Khazars, can also be traced back to the same area. And this is a doctor. This is a professor. He was doing his on his journey, kind of like discovering his roots. And this is him writing an account of what he discovered. According to Dr. Brown, he said nobody can trace their roots back to these guys. But I have a professor right here. Here's the source. Matter of fact, I will copy this source into the chat so you guys can properly vet the information, right? Right, family? We want to drop it right inside the chat. Let's do it right now, right? Let's do it right now. Let me copy this into the chat. All right, here we go. All right, there it is. It's in the chat. It's in the chat. So Ashkenazi Jewry, deriving from the ancient Khazars, can also be tracked back to the same area. I embarked on an overland trip from the Caspian Sea and the Caucasus to Central Europe, following in the footsteps of our ancestors. You're referring to his ancestors, not ours, to learn more about our history on a road trip from east to west. So notice what he says here too. He's describing a migration which actually is an invasion, right? So the migration of these people is described as the characteristics of a serpent. He also has the an image that he wrote out showing how their migration, and he's not going to label it as a migration. He start out by saying migration, but he's going to also say, no, it's actually an invasion, right? So I'm not just saying this, but he's going to bear witness to this, thus confirming that Revelation 11 is dealing with invasions, all right? So this is from this source. That's the route, and it looks like a snake. And that's what he's saying. It looks like a snake. All right. So he goes on to say that is usually described as a nation's migration period. So he's saying this is normally described as a migration period, a series of migrations. But notice what he says here. He says migrations of Germanic people from east to west, pushed forward by climatic changes and or enemies from the Asian steppes, like the Huns in another, I'm not going to butcher this word, I think it's Worker Wanderer view, which it says this migration is rather seen as invasions of joint Turco-Gothic forces. So it's saying that this is actually seen as invasion. This migration is rather seen as invasions of joint Turco-Gothic forces. In a more delicate interpretation, the invading steppe forces were manipulating with the invisible hand, like sheep-like resident people into nation building. And notice what they said here. Nat, the word nation, but that short form nat equals snake equals symbol of rebirth. All right. So just want to highlight that part of the article here. But he goes on to say here, all strangely connected through old High German. Okay. So we identified the Scythians, the Khazarians, right? We also identified the Khazars are all connected, right? And when this is just dealing with Meshech, this is tying in Moscow, right, to Meshech. So we see the Russians, when we read Japheth, right, you see Russia described all up in there, all right? So Meshech and Tubal, some assign a Russian identification, connecting these two nations with the modern Russian cities of Moscow and Tobolsk, all right? So northern powers headed by Russia all agree. The reference to Meshech and Tubal, in other words, Moscow and Tobolsk, is a clear mark of identification. Thus, the name Moscow derived from the tribal name Meshech, all right? Let's fast forward here. So this is just basically confirming that Russia, as far as Moscow and Tobolsk, right, these all connect to Russia, ultimately to Japheth, right? This is why I kind of trip, right? I'm not going to say kind of trip. I am tripping off many of our brothers and sisters that are trying to look at Putin as some type of savior because of some doctored fake videos about the Russian icons, right? Those videos are fake. Now, I want to make this clear. This is not saying that the Russian icons are fake. Those Russian icons are real. Those Russian icons were already presented to the public well before Putin was even born. Books were already circulating. Putin never said anything about, Jesus being black. Anyway, let me leave that alone. So, family, that's all part of Gog and Magog. And our brothers and sisters promoting Putin, guess what? You're fulfilling the scriptures because it talks about African tribes supporting Putin or supporting Gog and Magog. Read the scriptures, read the prophecy. All right. So that's why I want to make sure that we don't get caught up with that craziness, that foolishness, family. Don't get me wrong again. The Russian icons use it for historical information, but man, we should not be going at one another, pushing delusions, knowing that some of those videos, those videos circulating, they are lies. They are straight lies. Again, the Russian icons are not lies. They've been circulating. Putin didn't just open up a vault. The vault been open. And what he actually presented was the icon of the Trinity. Read up on it. He did that last year. All right. Anyway, I just want to reiterate that point because there was some trolls that was trolling the comment section, posting all kinds of craziness about the Most High using Putin. Get out of here. Lose me with that. Lose me with that, family. We don't need Japheths to confirm us for anything. Guess what? The scripture makes it clear that Christ was a dark, melanated person looking like you and I. Makes it clear that the Most High, the Father, Abba Yah, looks like you and I. Use the scriptures as your primary source, not secondary. All right. Now I can understand why the scripture says not to make any graven images, because we fight each other. You guys seen some of the craziness. People coming at me worshiping these things. I don't need those icons to prove that we the people of the book. I got the Russian icon book and also have the PDF as well. I got two copies of it, but I have a physical copy of the book. Anyway, let me get back to our regularly scheduled program. That was commercial. Let's get back to our regularly scheduled program. All right. I know I done ruffled some feathers, but it is what it is. We got to tell the truth here, family. All right. All right. So that's what this is doing here. This is giving us clarity that Russia, as far as Meshach, is Moscow. So it's really giving us further proof in sources that they're connected. And here, right, again, it says Japhethites migrated from Asia Minor to the north beyond the Caspian and Black Seas. They settled in the area of Rosh that we know today as Russia. Okay. And it says that Gog is undoubtedly the Russians. Gog is undoubtedly the Russians. Come on, brothers and sisters, wake up. Let me see here. Gog is undoubtedly the Russians. Identified Meshach as Moscow, the capital of Russia. Tubal, he identified as Tobolsk. All right. Oh, notice what it says here. Meshach was founded of the Mochi, a barbarous people who dwelt in the Mochian mountains. He went on to say the Greek name Moshi derived from the Hebrew Meshach. Come on, family. We still seeing what barbarian. We still seeing the word savages. Okay. So this is further information. This is further proof. The testament of the Grand Princes of Moscow. This is further proving that Meshach is connected to who? Moscow. That's all of this source is, but it's still connected to the Russians. And we see Mishkura, which is still dealing with Meshach, is still tied it in to Moscow. But we see Russified, have either been Russified or have amalgamated with the Bashkirs. All right. Eastern Bible Dictionary. Notice what it says here. Still tying it all together. Japheth. They were probably the Moshi people inhabiting Moshtian, mountains between the Black and Caspian Seas. So we still dealing with Russia. It goes on to say the Moshi were subdued, but it seems probable that a large number of them crossed the Caucasus range and spread over the northern steppes, mingling with who? The Scythians. Wait a minute. So we see Meshach connected to the Scythians. We see Tubal connected to the Scythians. We see Ashkenazis connected to the Scythians. We see the Khazars connected to the Scythians. The Scythians are the glue. There they became as Moscovs and gave the name to Russian nation and its ancient capital, by which they are still generally known throughout the East. Come on, family. You can't get away from this. Come on, family. You can't get away from this. We nothing but sources. Herodotus gave some additional key information about the Scythians. Notice what he says here. There is also another different story now to be related, in which I am more inclined to put faith than in any other. That it says it is that the wandering Scythians or Scythians once dwelt in Asia, and there warred with the Massageti or Massagete, excuse me for butchering it here, but with ill success, they therefore quitted their homes across the Araxes and entered the land of Samaria or Chimeria. For the land which is now inhabited by the Scyths or Scyths, however you want to pronounce it, was formerly the country of the Cimmerians. On their coming, the natives who heard how numerous the invading army was. So the Scythians, right? Or should we say here, yeah, we're dealing with the Scythians. The Scythians, they were invaders. They were invaders. As you see here, says they were how numerous the invading army was. Let me say that again. The Scythians, they were invading territories. They were invading territories. All right. Let's continue. Who are the Cimmerians or Cimmerians? Look what it says on the Gomer. Gomer or Gomer, right? It says here, Gomer, the name of a son of Japheth, descendants of, and his descendants, all right? Also of a Hebrew, in other words, saying that name. Not saying Gomer is Hebrew, all right, family? But there's a Hebrew, which we deal with Hosea, right? Hosea was married to a woman by the name of Gomer, right? But anyway, but notice what it says here. Gomer equals complete, the eldest son of Japheth and grandson of Noah, the progenitor of the early Cimmerians or Cimmerians and other branches of the Celtic family. All right. So we done connected this the Scythians to the Ashkenazis, the Khazars, the Meshech, Tubal, which is Moscow, Tubal, Gog, Magog. We done connected them to all these different groups, but we got one more group here, the Jutes. Who are the Jutes? Who are the Jutes? Right? Who are the Jutes? What does Jute sound like, family? What does Jute sound like to you? Because this is a major group of people that tend to not get discussed. They were a major tribe under the Germans, because the only thing you hear about in history books is the Anglo and the Saxons, but they don't really talk about the Jutes that was in Germany, right? That had more power, that helped defeat Britain, that the Anglos and the Saxons used soldiers anyway. Doesn't that sound familiar? Jutes? Because you have Jutes, Jutish. Doesn't that sound familiar? Now, if you want, family, I'll pause. Go to the etymological dictionary definition of the word. You'll see Jutes, Jutish, a German group. All right. But let's go to the source here, because I took a lot of the Jute stuff out. But let's connect, see how the Jutes are connected to the Ashkenazis as well, to the Khazars as well. Let's see how they connect. The Scythians, all of them are connected. And this source proves that they also are connected to who? The Vikings, who's known for what? Invasions. Revelation chapter 13. This fact is further proved by their unparalleled bravery, because Jutes were the first conquerors of Britain, even when later on Saxons invaded the shores of Southampton water. They could not succeed without reinforcement by a body of who? Jutes, just confirm what I just said, who formed settlements on their own Isle of Wight, and on the mainland. The historical material of those times is so meager that some historians confuse Saxons with Jutes. as belonging to the same race, although not only the race was different, but even the territory where they lived was quite separate. Jutes were Scythian Jats. Wait a minute, we see Scythians again. So Jutes were connected to the Scythian, which was called Jats, while Anglos and Saxons belonged to a Teutonic race, right? So are the Jutes really Scythians? Well, let's see what this source continued to say here. Some additional information, actually correcting some information about the H.G. Wells. It says that there were very small racial and social differences between Anglo-Saxons, Jutes, Dane, or Norman, which is the Vikings, Northmen, as mentioned as number 4 above. He was confused. He has confused, excuse me. It says he has confused Anglos and Saxons to belong to the Teutonic race with the Jutes, Danes, and Normans who belong to Scythian race. So guess what? They say that the Jutes, the Danes, and Normans belong to the Scythian race. But we need to understand who are the Normans. The fact that they were allies in the raids upon Britain is not enough for their racial confusion. Vikings were called Northmen because they lived in the north while Anglos and Saxons lived in the south. Northmen ultimately were abbreviated to Normans. Wait a minute. So we see the Vikings, we know the Vikings are known for savagery. We know the Vikings are known for savagery. We know how they've done human sacrifices. Come on now. do your research. They were known for human sacrificing. They were known to doing a number of different things. But the thing that they was mostly recognized for were their invasions. So we see the Scythians are connected. The Vikings are part of the Scythians. The Scythians are connected to who? The Ashkenazis. The Ashkenazis are connected to who? The Khazarians. I sound like I'm saying, what's that? The hip bone connected to the thigh bone. I sound like I'm singing that right now. But we see the Scythians are what? They're the glue to all of the, pretty much the descendants of Japheth. We see the Scythians connected to the Gogs and Magog. Come on, family. And we see the Vikings here. So are the Jews who are Scythian Jats connected to the Vikings? That's what the source says. But it didn't stop. Let's see what else it says here. It says here, right? There was a fresh conquest of England by the Danes, and the Norman Duke of Normandy became king of England. This will be mentioned in detail in another chapter. Here I am concerned only with the fact that Danes, Vikings, or Normans were all Jutes. Let me say that again. The fact that Danes, Vikings, or Normans were all Jutes. They were all different names under the same race of Scythian Jats or Scythian Jats. And then we see here Yuchi. I know I had a little fun with this saying Ueki, but it's actually Yuchi. Yuchi. Doesn't that sound familiar? You, right? So this is connected to the Scythians. This is what the Chinese called the name that they used for the Scythian Jats, Yuchi. All right. So the Chinese called them Yuchi. Right. We see it here. Later on, these Yuchi became or were merged with Aryan elements into a people called the Indo-Scythians or Scythians. Come on, family. I'm giving you source after source, source after source after source. And guess what? Invading India, we see here, wiping out the last vestiges of Hellenic rule in India. The big splash over Mongolian races westward was probably not the first of such splashes. All right. So, family, I gave you a lot of sources. I gave you a lot of sources, right? Showing how the savagery, the brutality of the Scythians, showing you with scripture, showing you with sources, showing how the Scythians, which is connected to the Khazarians, which is connected to the Ashkenazis, which are connected to the Vikings. I gave you a ton of sources. So this is on your table. This is on your plate for you to decide. But let me do one thing here that I said I was going to do. I said it was two things I was going to share with you guys. I want to do that before we wrap up here. I said I was going to show you guys the connection between, I was going to define the word church, but I was also going to deal with the slave trade, showing the Jewish participation in that. Let's see here. All right, let me pull that up here. Bear with me 1 second, family. Let me pull it up here. Because, that is one area that many refuse to acknowledge, or it's being when you say that, point to them, that community, as far as their involvement in the slave war or the world war, it's often referred to as, now they're trying to say that that is an anti-Semitic trope. So we're going to, I just want to make sure, all right, it's not in this source. Well, this, you guys know the source I'm going to pull out. Oh, yes, it's here. Here it is. All right. So I'm not going to pull a lot of sources. I'm just going to pull a couple of basic. All right. Where is it? Oh, I thought I had the beginning here. I guess I don't. All right. Let me make sure before I cut it and paste it over here. All right. Oh, yeah, it is here. All right. Let me copy this over. Because, again, I know how certain spaces roll. Because when you start mentioning certain things and you don't share sources, they'll try to come at what's being done here. All right. So you got to always show sources, family, especially for those that are creating channels. Make sure you show sources. Anything that you mention, make sure you show actual sources. All right. So I'm going to show you actual sources. Actual source. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to share just a main source here. All right. And then also I'll bring out the meaning of the word church here in a second. All right. So let's deal with this real quick. All right. Jews and Judaism in the United States, a documentary history by Rabbi Mark Lee Raphael, 1983. All right. All right, let me do one more thing here. All right. So again, the Jews and Judaism in the United States, a documentary history, Rabbi Mark Lee Raphael, 1983. All right. I don't know why it's doing that. Why is it? I don't know why it's shifting like that. But anyway. All right. But anyway, it says Jews and Judaism in the United States. And notice what it says. Jews took an active part in the Dutch colonial slave trade. All right. And this is going into, I'm not going to get into all the details, but it says included an imposter of 5 soldos for each Negro slave. And it says Negro slave, a Brazilian purchase from the West Indies country. It goes on to say, as well as in the British colonies of Barbados, Jamaica in the 18th century, the Jewish merchants played a major role in the slave trade. In fact, it says in all the American colonies, whether French, British, or Dutch, Jewish merchants frequently dominated. All right. It goes on to say, it says, during the 18th century, Jews participated in the triangular trade that brought slaves from Africa to West Indies. And it goes on to say, and these are some of the people that dominated. Let me just, So right here where it says Isaac da Costa, David Franks, Aaron Lopez, these are some of the Jewish and people that dominated the slave trade. That's why it says here, dominated Jewish slave trading on the continent, on the American continent. So these are some of many Jews that dominated slavery, even on the continent, American continent, right? North America, South America, right? So you see these names here. All right. So again, it goes on to say they dominated the Jewish slave trade, trading on the American continent. All right. And this going on again is saying played a significant role in the merchant capitalism, commercial revolution, and territorial expansion. The Jewish Caribbean nexus provided Jews with the opportunity to claim a disproportionate influence in the 17th and 18th century, far outnumbering its core religionists, or should I say co-religionists, excuse me. All right. So this is just giving you, again, some information showing how they dominated the triangular slave or triangular world war. I don't like to call it a slave trade. You guys already know how I roll, because it wasn't a slave trade. It was a world war. So I just want to share a quick source there. Matter of fact, you know what? No, I'm gonna leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. No, I'm going to share it. You know why? Because I know how these spaces do. So let me show you one additional source from that community showing how they dominated the slave trade. Let me show one more source. You know, because I know how these spaces roll. All right, let me see here. Get into it. All right. I thought I had it in here. I guess I don't. All right. It's not in that one. I thought I had it in here. All right, let's try this one. They enslaved. Let's try this one. I think it's this one. Oh, no, this is about the Egyptians. Yeah, family. I was going to show another source, but I think I did a little. I think I did more than enough to show you guys, because I was going to show you guys. Matter of fact, I'm going to try one more thing. If not, then I'm just going to call it a wrap with that. Let's see here. All right. All right. Actually, I think I found it. Let's see if we found it. I think I did, but let's prove it. All right. Yep. Let me share one more source here. I'm going to copy this over. I'm not going to deal with the blackface, but I'll share another source. All right. All right. One last source I'll share here, because I did want to show. All right, here it is. I want to read one more source. All right, here it is. Let me copy it over, and then we'll call it a wrap. All right. All right, let's see here. Almost done, family. I'm going to show you another source. All right, here it is. Let's fast forward. This is coming from the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. It says Juniverse, but notice what it says. At its prime, and this they're highlighting Aaron Lopez in this particular article. At its prime in the 18th century, Aaron Lopez was the wealthiest man in Newport, Rhode Island. He didn't get that way. He didn't get that way by taking the moral high ground, Born in 1731 to Portuguese converso Jews, Lopez practiced Catholicism openly and Judaism behind closed doors. Upon resettling in Newport in 1752, he headed a booming mercantile business. But the point that I want to get to here, it says here, Lopez was said to have at least partially owned over 30 transoceanic ships and more than 100 coastal vessels. All right. So this letting you know that he dominated in his area, but there's others that dominated in different areas. So I just want to show this real quick. I know that, this is a lot of information for you guys. I know this is a lot of information for you guys. All right. Do I want to? Nah, I don't feel like looking for the word church. I'll stop right here, family. I'll stop right here. So, family, I really appreciate the love and support. Appreciate you guys for allowing the channel to grow, and family, because YouTube is trying to pump the brakes on how fast the channel has been growing. If you notice that the numbers have been sitting almost at a standstill for the past week and a half, because right now we should be well over 70,000 subscribers. So, but it's all good. Share this video, share it, hit that like button. I'm not sure where we are with the like on this video. Let me peep it out real quick. So we have 454 likes here, but we've on the average tonight, we had over almost 1,200 people. So we should be able to get those likes up, family. Let's get those likes up. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Hit that like and subscribe to the channel, family. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know that my cousin was in the building. Benea, I'll just drop the link if you want to come in. I didn't know that you was in the building. Let me drop that link if you want to jump in. So, family, I'll just hold if Cuz going to jump on in. I want to share his thoughts, but hit that like button, family. Let's get those thumbs up, because that's how we continue to press beyond the algorithms. If you have a YouTube channel, or if you have just a YouTube page, copy it over there. Copy it to your social media. That's how we continue to get the word out. All right. So again, I know I shared a lot of information, but again, we caught, we just caught Dr. Brown contradicting himself. This is not throwing any shots, but we got to keep it real. He contradicted himself. All right. So let me bring my cousin Benea into the building. How's it going, cuz?
Hey, peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. Uh-oh.
Still there, cuz?
Peace. Testing. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, peace and blessings, cuz. Excellent presentation, man. Excellent presentation. I mean, there's all. Not only did he got caught by multiple references, and that's the thing with Dr. Brown. that I'm surprised that he's still trying to push that lie at this point. It's real late in the game, cuz.
Yeah. I was surprised when I heard the video. I was like, wow, I mean, to go there with the Khazars, you know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
like, wow, it's, why even go there? But then again, I guess we know why he went there. So.
Right. And it's funny because you have people respected historians like Josephus, and Josephus himself, in his works, he tells of the who the folks think that Gog and Magog are, right? To your point, like to some of the references that you showed, and they were like, they basically pointed to the Scythians, right? He was like, the Greeks consider like these Scythians or Scythians or however you pronounce it. He's like Gog and Magog, hashtag Russia, East Russia, as Gog and Magog, and then in addition to that, you also have the DNA that matches, those Scythians, those folks that are in that area, to the founder group of the Ashkenazi. It's like that's it. It's like there's no debate at that point.
Yeah. But you know what, guys? Some, no matter what you do, they're gonna always try to say the opposite. You know what I mean? Almost kind of like that thing, like what's his name from the Republicans that helped George Sr. get elected, Karl Rove. Even though he didn't come up with the quote, but he said, "Hey, you keep telling the same lie over and over again, people will believe it to be the truth eventually."
Right.
And maybe that's that, keep rehearsing the same lie over and over again, that some people will continue to believe that it's true, even though the wheels are falling off of it, more and more. But yeah, I'm just, initially I was shocked, but then at the same time, I'm not.
Right. Yeah. Even I think you mentioned before, he mentioned even with his last name, Brown, and he was kind of talking about this offline. It's like, this whole idea of surnames, because of course when you open the scriptures, you don't see last names being used in the scriptures. It's not like Isaiah Jenkins or Zachariah Johnson.
Yeah.
But that was actually something that was started by the Spanish and Portuguese Jews. Like they were the ones that started that whole surname stuff, and then eventually the Ashkenazi community started using that. And so it's funny because when you see Dr. Brown start saying that, when he says things like, "Oh yeah, my name's Brown," and we just it doesn't mean anything. It's just short for something. It's like, no, that's a Sephardic, last name, first of all, and then secondly, the reason why they used the word brown in Sephardic, Israelites was because they were brown. And that was just a depiction or identification or description of what they look like. So the fact that he's called Brown and he's not brown kind of points to, and it's a Sephardic, forgive me, fam, I'm using their terms. It's a Sephardic surname that also shows that even that too was borrowed, using air quotes, that was borrowed from someplace else.
Wow. Well, you heard what he said with his own mouth, that they took the name, they took the identity.
Right.
I mean, it was just, man, he just, so many things that he done said, just in those short clips. It was like, man, when he said that part, it was like, man, he just openly admitted, that he took the identity, reputation of another group. So yeah, that's great information right there with the Brown. Any other things you want to jump off the top rope with?
Well, I mean, I know, you at the end of the presentation, but just to kind of land back and just on one quick reference with what you're talking about as far as like the transatlantic slave trade. Because while you was doing that, I was in the background. I was trying to also pull. There's also a reference that talks about underwriters. Like the whole thing when you think about slavery, we often think about plantation owners or masters, quote unquote masters, and the slaves. But the slave industry, it had many different parts. I mean, it had the people that were captaining the ships. That funded the ships. You have the people that also operated as underwriters. It's like, if you're familiar with underwriters, if you ever purchased a home or try to purchase a car, you walk in there, and if you have to finance it, they'll have to send it to the underwriters, because if the underwriters don't approve it, that loan's not getting approved. Well, slavery was the same thing, family. They had underwriters that, without their approval, those transactions weren't happening. And guess who was dominating the field or the part of the underwriter? And it was that community, and that's what I was trying to look for, Pastor Caleb. I couldn't find it before you came to me, so I will, and I'll see if I can find it, and we can share it in a later broadcast.
Oh yeah. Another follow-up coming.
Right.
Whether we do it on your channel or we do it here.
Right.
I want to go into the cannibalism of the Scythians or Scythians. I want to deal with some additional information that I have on the savagery of those people. So Yeah, we definitely, do a part 2 to the video.
Yeah, there's a lot of meat on that bone, because you even had Caesar. When Caesar, back in the day, I remember when we were talking about how those folks came against Rome, and they were called barbarians, and for the most part in history, that's all we knew about them. But when you go back and look at the accounts of Caesar or Tacitus, stuff like that, you start to see this description of a people that come from that same area, family. And they're always described the same. They're masculine and muscular. They're kind of real big boned, kind of like those Neanderthals. Have you ever seen Neanderthals? Those depictions, they're kind of like that. And they're, of course, light skin, red hair, blue eyes, light skin. It's like always those 3 descriptions. Plus the one that Pastor Kelly was just talking about, the savagery. Like, this is something that even Caesar himself was talking about. It's like, man, these guys are wilding out. They come over here and they're the Romans have the swords, right? Or they have these staffs and spears. These barbarians, so to speak, often use clubs with like little bitty kind of like barbed wire wrapped around the end of it. But that was their weapon of choice. We even have pictures and depictions of it. So yeah, Pastor Kelly, like I said, there's a lot of meat on that bone. You start getting into the savagery of it.
Yeah, man. And I was reading some of Herodotus, man, how he gave an account of how, man, some people were just like, look, we're not rolling with you, as far as to the Scythians,
Right.
showing how they picked a fight with the Persians. I was like, wow. And they were like, hey, the Persians was minding their business. You guys picked a fight with them. I'm paraphrasing, but it's literally in the Herodotus writings that they picked a fight with the Persians. And they were like, you know what? Since you guys picked this fight, the Persians ain't do nothing wrong to us. This is the fight you're going to have to fight on your own. And they said, they were like, we're not even providing you any help.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Just to your point, is when you look at the different groups, like the Babylonians write about them, the Assyrians write about them. I mean, the Persians write about them, the Romans write about them, the Greeks write about them. But then suddenly we're told they just disappeared.
Yeah, even the Muslims themselves write about them. They call them Majuj. Was it Juj and Majuj? And in their writings, they have this. It's kind of funny because I think the Jerusalem Post even wrote a story, an opinion piece about it as well. But they talked about how, from the Muslim perspective, in their I think it's like the Quran and some other documents, but they talked about these people, that lived behind the Caucasus Mountains, and that according to their prophecy or foretelling, is like at some point in time in history they would break loose and conquer the world. And what do we see over in that area is that the people from the Caucasus Mountains, they break loose, and they first things first, they go over and conquer Europe. They become the the kings and queens over in these various different countries. Even like the king of England and those guys, they can trace their lineage back to Germany, back to these German origins. But that's what they did, family. They took over, and then next thing you know, transatlantic world war, like Pastor Kelly would say, and the children of Yehuda are persecuted and sent all around the world. It's the same people, family. It's the same people.
Yeah, yeah. And you see how they have their hands in everything, right?
Yep.
Everything. Yep. And like I said, when I'm pulling up the information about the Scythians, I'm like, man, they connected to them too. I mean, all the way to India. Even the Chinese people wrote about them. Like we even shared a source here. They called them the Yuchi. Right? So they was called the Scythian Jutes, but they were connected to the Chinese called them Yuchi.
Wow.
Almost sound like the word Jew, right?
Right. Yep. And it's funny because it's like when you know history and who people are, then you're not surprised when you see them do certain things. like for instance, like all that stuff that's going on over in the land of Israel right today, you know, with all the you know, you look at Gaza and it looks like just a wasteland. Like they just totally just destroyed everything. But when you look back at history, like the history of the Scythians or the Yamnaya, like those people in that territory, their MO was just scorched earth. Like they was just totally destroy everything, trees, animals, grass, like, and burn it. And once they left, it literally looked like the surface of the moon. Like that's how people could tell where they had been. And so that's when, you know, why when I start seeing this behavior over in the Gaza Strip, I'm like, oh yeah, well, that's what they do. So, not surprised.
Wow.
Not surprised.
Wow. Well, I tell you, man, we definitely got to run it back. Bring some more of this information out. And are you doing a live tomorrow night?
What's tomorrow? No, not tomorrow, but definitely try to
Monday, right?
Yeah, Monday. You know, everybody's gonna be running around crazy. Half the people are going to be celebrating, other half are going to be, you know, trying to figure out, you know, what this means and what judgments is supposed to fall and stuff like that. So yeah, just want to be a part of that and kind of just watch it as it goes. I think it's the event itself is not going to last too long. I think oh man, I want to say the time wise is like a little bit before 2 p.m. Eastern, and then it goes all the way up to like maybe like 2:45 Eastern or something like that. So yeah, it's not gonna be too long, but it'll be interesting just to kind of watch it as it goes through each city and kind of talk about the significance, you know, of some of those cities as it traverses across the U.S.
I got to make my aluminum foil hat too. I'm gonna have that on that day.
Yep. Yeah, they're talking about
anyone you want to. I'm sorry, cuz go ahead.
Oh no! I just saying it's going to be, like I said, I don't really expect a whole lot. I mean, I could be wrong. Definitely could be wrong that something could pop off because, you know, if you're keeping track of what's going on over in Israel, you know, it just seems like there's, you know, just this escalation upon escalation, and they're coming out of Ramadan the following day, like not on the 8th, but I think on the 9th is the last day of the Muslim holy days, and you know who knows what's going to pop off after that, but. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, Pastor Kelly.
Absolutely. Well, family, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here because any final words you want to give to the people, any garbage can awards you want to give out?
Well, I would just say just any of those who are still holding on to that lie that, you know, that the Khazar theory is false, because at this late in the game, family, it's proven via DNA. Like anytime, like I said, there's an easy button with this. You don't have to get like super complex. You can get super complex, but there's also an easy button where it just says, what's your DNA? Like, what's your Y haplogroup? Oh, okay, so your Y R1B, you know, 1A or whatever that Y haplogroup is. If you're that, then you're you're Scythian or Scythian. It's just that simple. And like we were saying, like the founder group of the Ashkenazis has that in it. It has the R1B 1A or whatever that thing is, that group is, and that means that they are related to the Scythians or related to the Khazars. So it's real simple, fam. I don't know why they're trying to make it super difficult. But I would throw
why.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would throw those folks that are still trying to hang on to that lie, give them the trash can.
Yeah, we'll give them the trash can award. We give everybody, you know, we give them all the trash can. And we'll also give them a 3-piece. Got to give them a 3-piece. In their order to go. And also want to say that Dr. Brown definitely did a great job in those clips that we shared. He was definitely tap dancing. He was definitely getting his dance on. I mean, he was dancing all over the place, man, with his comments. He was actually doing this all night, the ducktail dance.
Life is like a hurricane.
So with that being said, family, really appreciate you guys for watching tonight. If not tomorrow night, we'll be, on Benea's channel, dealing with the eclipse that's going to occur on the 8th. But really appreciate the love and support, family. With that being said, in the words of the Most High, as he gave to Moses to give to Israel, when they were challenged with the water in front of them, which seemed to be a dead end, the Most High gave them these encouraging words. He said, fear ye not, stand still, see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see here today, they will never have power over you ever again. But here's the kicker, family. He said, the Most High will fight for you, but we have to hold our peace. The Hebrew word that's in the text is charash, which means be quiet. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was black. Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel, according to Genesis chapter 10.